Welcome to the Intentional Encourager podcast, where each episode brings you compelling conversations and stories designed to entertain, enlighten, and encourage. And now here's your host, Brian Sexton.
Hey everybody, Brian Sexton. You know what's really important to me when I do business with a company is trust and transparency. I've been telling you now for a good while about my buddy Damon Burton and his company, SEO National, because trust and transparency are just as important to them. You know, for the last 15 years, in the search engine optimization space, they have been leading the way and serving people tremendously well. Now, for those of you that don't know what SEO is, it stands for search engine optimization. It helps you show up higher on Google searches so that folks that are looking for what you have find you quicker. And you know what's really encouraging? More revenue, more sales, growing your business. Do me a favor, get in touch with Damon and his team today at SEO National at 855-736-6285 or go to SEOnational.com and get your free quote and tell them you heard it on the Intentional Encourager podcast. I hope you're ready, because here comes a dynamite conversation on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
And welcome into the Intentional Encourager podcast. I'm your host, Brian Sexton. Thank you for joining us again today. Hey, another podcast on the road. I wish we had the nice background. I wish I had the background that my guest has got. That is a beautiful background. But if you know this guy, you're going to immediately recognize this guy's smile. And he is all about making others smile. If there's anybody that I know that epitomizes intentional encouragement, it's this guy right here. Go to the smileprojectlouisville.com. Smileprojectlouisville.com. You can find out more about him, but you can see him right here, right now. On the Intentional Encourager podcast, the one and only Michael Ray. Michael, what's going on, brother?
What's up, man? Coming live from the kitchen, baby.
I'm live from a hotel room in Mount Kisco, New York, as we record this. But I would much rather be in Louisville, one of my favorite cities. So let's start here. In the last couple of years, you know, everybody looks at Louisville once a year. And as we record this past weekend was Derby weekend in Louisville, arguably one of the greatest weekends in sports. And people see the pomp and pageantry of Louisville that happens once a year. And of course, if you know anything about Louisville, there's Thunder over Louisville that happens a couple weeks before. There's parades and things like that. But there's a side of Louisville the last couple of years that have gone through some things. I've talked to some people that live there. Louisville's gone through quite a bit. Take me through the last couple of years for you. How have you continued to maintain the Smile Project and the positivity that you carry when there is so much going on around you in your city?
Well, first and foremost, I tell people in which I've been blessed to know what unconditional pure love looks like. And that's my 23-year-old daughter with Down syndrome, and she's nonverbal. So regardless of the circumstances in the world, you know, when you take that and the fact that in her mind, she doesn't judge. So I look at it, you know, when we're going through these challenging times, regardless of what they are, but as you positioned it with Louisville, unfortunately, we were probably the second worst place to be in the country behind Minnesota with what took place here. But when you find the ability to love unconditionally and not judge others, you can go around and make the entire free world smile. I think for some of that time in Louisville, we probably were a little bit more intentional in that we reached out to people that we had relationships and friends with in the Black community to come together to preach a message of love and hope and faith. It's not easy at times, but again, we draw from that faith and this little girl that looks at life differently. And anybody listening to this that has faith in their life, you know, Christ wants us to love. And I look at her and tell people, you know, outwardly, when you see Down syndrome, you don't see perfection. I think it's human nature because we're like, oh, well, poor her family. But I
Well,
would
it's
tell
the
you,
Michael, it's the Instagram society. Let me jump in
it's
there.
yeah, and you're exactly right. You're
Yeah.
exactly right. But that's what Christ's idea for humanity was to find this place of love. So she's carrying his cross, in which that's how I have been conditioned now to look at life and people. So regardless of your circumstances in life, I laugh and say, man, I ain't here to judge you. That's not my job. My job is here to love you and love you through whatever the circumstances are. So, when it came to COVID and those challenges, or even the challenges of how do you make a stranger smile when the free world tells you to stay 6 feet away, and wear a mask, and I'm all about smiling. So we pivoted and we started doing everything outside, and we stayed 6 feet away where people felt safe because at times, again, when you're loving strangers through the simplicity of actions of being kind and showing them love to make them smile, sometimes it gets emotional. When you're going through things in life and they're trying to understand and process, why is this absolute complete stranger here today doing this for me? And we did find some challenges with that because I'm a very emotional man. And I look back at times in which, through COVID, the one that comes to mind, and I won't forget it, I was in a Myers. It was a grocery store parking lot. It was snowing. And here we were doing something for a lady that needed a kidney transplant. And we had our masks off, and then she started bawling. Well, instincts tell you, go hug her.
Yeah, 100%.
Hug her. But then, and we video everything. We video everything because we want to impact and inspire and influence others to do things, in their life for other people. But immediately when it was done, the reaction was, oh my gosh, you hugged her. COVID's going on. People are going to watch that. But I always went back to that place of I never worried about what someone else was going to say. That, I looked at going, no, God has me in that moment with that person for a reason. And if that's kind of what took place, then we hugged it out.
Well, and that's what I love about you. And I've watched a lot of those videos, and COVID actually took you a lot of different places. You went to Florida, you went to California, you went a lot of places. Texas, you went outside of that. And Michael, that's the thing that I love about the Smile Project is the emotions of people that you touch and impact are raw and they're real. And they're just as raw and real in your eyes as they are in the person that you're blessing, that person that you're giving to, and things like that. Take me to one, if you don't care. Take me to one in the last couple of years that blew you away. You're all about blowing other people away, and they are. The emotions are. Yeah, go ahead.
It's hard to single out one, but let's call it what it is. I mean, it's different standing on the front porch of a mother who 3 months before lost a child and trying to make her smile. And again, I don't diminish all of them, because in some form or fashion, all of them have value, and I'm there for a reason, So I'm told to go to the mother's house to make them smile, because that's part of how we operate here, is people reach out to me.
Hey everybody, Brian Sexton here. The new year is upon us, and you may be sitting there thinking, hey, I would really love to pay off some debt, or I would like to save for that dream vacation. Maybe you want to buy a new car, whatever it is you want to do financially in the coming year. Let me give you a great piece of intentional encouragement and something to think about that might help you do it. products for profit. Now, this is a course taught by my good friend Joe Hart, who's been a guest on the Intentional Encourager podcast and has told his story how reselling changed his life. And you know what, folks? It could do the same thing for you too. It's really simple. Reselling is basically buying a product and then reselling it online for more money. And Joe is going to take you through the steps and show you how to do this either part-time or maybe, as some of his students have done, take this full-time as well. Go to coachjoe89.gumroad.com/L/premium PFP. And oh, by the way, this group is going to help you find leads of products that are profitable right now, give you all kinds of great intentional encouragement, and you're going to be surrounded by a community of people that are going to want to see you be successful in the reselling game. Again, go to coachjoe89.gumroad.com/L/premium PFP and tell him you heard about it on the Intentional Encourager podcast. And now let's get back to more great conversation here on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
Like you just said, the different states we went to, there was a dude on Venice Beach in California. And a lot of the ones I did on the road, I met up with people from LinkedIn. And we went and did things in their community based upon people they told me about. But then I also say, I freelance at times. And what that basically means, and going back to Venice Beach, I don't care how long it takes. When I say I don't care how long it takes, I walked up and down that beach for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I look at it as, it's like the Holy Spirit's going to tap me on the shoulder that I might see 100 different people, but I'm patient and going, no, that's who I want to go. It's not going and just immediately trying to find the first person. It's just that feeling that I get, but then I'm sitting with a dude in the sand who's homeless and having a conversation with him, and outside of, blessing people with a small gift, I like to ask these people one very simple question. And the responses I get from people when I ask them, it truly is that deer in the headlights moment. But when I ask them, in this case, I won't forget that guy's name. His name was Bill. I said, Bill, what makes you amazing?
Yeah.
And people at first, they have to try to process it. But I often say and go back to one very simple thought, and that is the first thing that comes to mind is what people love about themselves. And I get very, very real answers from people. And Bill said, no matter how hard life gets, I still have my faith and the ability to smile because he's laying in the sand. And I've asked this question, again, now probably a couple of hundred different times to all different kinds of people in all walks of life, because it doesn't matter where you are in your journey and what you do. But the responses are so beautiful from people. And you did say this earlier, and that is, it is raw. It is real. It's just what I tell people. It's just me choosing to turn the iPhone camera on and having an interaction with a stranger. And in most cases, when I'm done, I go watch it again. And sometimes I get emotional watching it back, but I sit there and go, God, we got it right.
Yeah. Well, it's
we got it right,
Well, Mike, what's happening is when you go back and watch something, and I've done this with the podcast. I'll go back and listen to it, and those moments in the moment where I'm dumbstruck by somebody, I've asked a question, somebody gives me an answer, and I'm dumbstruck by the fact that they were like, hey, Brian, I'm going to tell you something I haven't told a lot of people. I'm going to share this part of my story. And I go, why did they choose me? Why did they have enough faith and confidence in me to tell something they haven't really told before? And the same thing, I'm sure you go back and watch those and you go, that person probably opened up to me in a way they haven't opened up to a lot of people. Or maybe I did something that not a lot of people have done for them, And you got the emotion, the response that you got, Michael. And it's just breathtaking to see that. You know, here's where I want to go with this. How much further can you take the Smile Project? And what more can you do to impact people? Because if I know anything about intentional encouragement, I know that the best intentional encouragement and the thing that impacts people most is the spontaneous acts that you pull off that people have no idea, but it's always the timing of it is just spot on. Because the mother that you mentioned that lost the baby, that probably wakes up every day thinking about that loss and goes to bed thinking about that loss, and probably,
you know what, and you bring up a good point. You ask where it can go, or where I want it to go. That was one of the first times when I did that one, and I probably at that point in time, and I'm guessing I'd done 20 or 30, so it was early on, but I'd done enough to know. And they were in such financial dire straits, they couldn't afford a tombstone for their child. And it hit me going, you know what? Sometimes it's not a $50 or $100 gift card, that maybe we got to find $1,000 to be able to give to a family so they can go get a tombstone to help them, you know, smile. Or we've done some things at Christmas time, and especially early in COVID, we did things for single mothers that were working in the restaurant industry that were really impacted. And I sat around with my family going, you know, look, man, if you're a single mother and you got 2 or 3 kids, we called it Saving Santa. I'm like, me giving you $50 is cool, but that doesn't put gifts. So we went around and gave out $400 and $500, you know, to these women. And then, okay, yeah, you can go do a lot of damage with $500, you know, for it. So where I want it to go is in that direction. And I've thought at times going, you know, it's not a make-a-wish thing, but there are times in which the need is different, you know. And I ultimately, you know, a lot of when people go through challenges, I just take myself back to that place in which it's the simplicity of it. And again, when this is very raw and real, I never know what I'm going to say when I go into the moment. But I often have a very short prayer that I say for the right words to come into my mouth when I'm somebody. Because so I get 90 seconds to 2 minutes with a stranger. But I won't forget it. I was with a 28-year-old third grade school teacher that was battling, she had colon cancer and going through treatments, but yet remained so positive. And I sat there with my arm around her. It was before COVID. And I said, you know what? We smile and want to make others smile because sometimes life is hard. And for those who choose to still smile when life isn't easy, that's what I want, because that's what I didn't do in my life. When my life got really, really hard, I got really, really depressed. You know, and I didn't smile, and it impacted my relationships and everything in life, you know. So it's giving that people that glimmer of hope and knowing that regardless of your circumstances in life, life can still be good.
Well, here's the thing, Michael, you bring up such a good point, because we find it easiest to smile, as you say, when things are good. And we want to tell everybody on social media when things are good, or where we ate dinner.
Of course, our lives are, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, man. And the thing that I love about what you just said is you're trying to call a timeout in the middle of their life just to give them a breather. You know, I mean, we were talking before we started recording, you know, I'm a sports guy. Louisville's a sports town where you live.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes, you know, a coach, you know, in basketball, I mean, Kentucky, the state of Kentucky's basketball crazy. But, Michael, there are times when a coach will just call timeout to give his team a breather. They may be getting their butt kicked by 20 or 30, And that coach may just go, you know what, let's just sit down for a couple of minutes. I didn't need to call a timeout just for any other reason.
Just pause for a moment.
Just to pause, exactly.
Yeah.
And what you said that struck me was how impactful the pause can be at times when somebody is just going through hell and they are just, it's hard to breathe and things like that. When you look back, I want to go here for just a minute. How do you think Michael Ray in 2022 would have impacted Michael Ray when you were going through those hard times in your life? How would you have made yourself smile?
Well, I said something it's funny. I said I have 4 kids. My oldest daughter's 25, and I said something to her recently. And when I said it, we were on the phone. We were FaceTiming because I'm a big FaceTime person because I like to see people when I talk to them. And when I said this to her, she goes, "Wait, repeat that to me." And I said, I don't have bad days now, I have bad moments. So I don't allow things in my life to control and define me. So back then, bad days became bad weeks, bad months, bad years. So now if I have a bad moment, I don't allow it to control my day, my mood, my happiness. So it's funny because when I repeated to her, she then created this meme and sent it to me. But it's true because, even when I look back 4 years ago when this started, it's because I was having a bad morning in the office. And I went through a drive-through at Wendy's, and the interaction with the drive-through worker just kind of re-energized me and changed my path for that day. And that's really, when you talk about then how people process things and why we do what we do, is to get them to refocus or just pause.
Hey everybody, Brian Sexton. Have you ever wanted to live a bucket list life? Or if you're a business owner, have you ever wanted to incentivize your team in unbelievable ways? I have got just the thing for you. You need to contact my friend Brad Norwood with Dream It Pro Professional Events. Brad's been a guest here on the Intentional Encourager podcast, and I can tell you he has helped numerous companies achieve unbelievable things through experienced travel. Experiences are what people want. They want to know how they can live incredible bucket list lives as well, too. And Brad can help you with both of those things. I can't give you any better encouragement than to give Brad and his team a call right now at 479-466-6907 or go to www.dreamitpro.com. And when you get there, click on events and you are going to see some unbelievable once-in-a-lifetime experiences. And I promise you this, unlike plaques, awards, trophies, things like that, experiences and trips like these don't burn up in a fire. Again, go to www.dreamitpro.com today. And now let's get back to more great conversation here on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
In that it's going to be okay. I had to, in my life, retrain my mind to look at life differently. And I tell people that doesn't happen over a weekend. I don't sit there on Friday night going, I want to be a totally different person come Monday, and the whole world's going to be rainbows and unicorns and positive. It takes time, because as things continue to happen to us in life, it's how we process it and really move on from it. So.
Well, what you're describing, and this is what I've been trying to tell people for a few years now, it is the act of getting yourself encouraged and then keeping yourself encouraged. And you just hit the nail on the head, Michael. It's about bad moments. It's not about bad days or bad weeks or bad because everything spirals, right? When you're going through that, there's something that has to, and again, I'm going to use a sports analogy. It's breaking the run. It's doing something to break the run.
It is when when all of a sudden a team, we'll go back to basketball, is going on a 10-0 run and that coach calls that timeout. You're looking to break that momentum and pause things, in their minds to be able to reset and refocus,
Well,
most certainly.
Exactly. And this is what I've always admired about you. You have the innate ability to know when to encourage correctly through things. And this is what I talk about sometimes is that a lot of people, and again, I'm all for intentional encouragement, but I'm all for correct intentional encouragement. And there's right ways to do it and wrong ways to do it. And a lot of times
Very
I think
much so.
and I think, Michael, here's what I find. I find that a lot of people want to encourage someone when they can get something back from it, right? And you've done the Smile Project with no expectation of return. All you want to do is, and that's what has struck me about what you do and how you do it is, listen, and you've said it when you've said it in your videos, and it's genuine and it comes through as genuine because I know that's the way you think is, listen, we just wanted to make your day today. We just wanted to make you smile. I'm not here for any other reason. I'm not here because somebody's paying me to be here. I'm not here because we're getting sponsored to be here. I'm here because somebody told me about you and somebody told me you needed a smile. And to me, that is such an ultimate form of intentional encouragement. What is does that encourage you? Does that keep you going? And if so, how does it keep you going when you do that for somebody else?
So the answer to that is yes. Two things with it. So the first thing is I go to, and this is fundamentally everything that I do. I probably heard this quote from Maya Angelou about 6 months in, but when I heard it, I was like, this encapsulates everything I do. People will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. So I say that because when I give people balloons or gift cards and we're in that moment, it's really cool. But the balloons die, they spend the gift card, they don't forget how I made them feel. And that's often what I go back to when I rewatch videos that I've done. I feel that same emotion in joy. And I can sit here right now and watch something I did 2.5 years ago. And if I was crying then, I'll start crying again right now because I remember being in the room and what it felt like in that moment with that person. It's very real. The other piece to this is, and I actually did a post maybe a couple of months ago on LinkedIn about this, and that is, look, a lot of what I do is just a giant pay it forward movement. So it's people who open their hearts in most cases, go, I'm going to give you $20 or $50, and then you're going to go give it away kind of thing. And I've never made a career out of this. And I've really spent countless hours doing this. And I had this thought, I was running at the gym and I said, you know what? I could sit here and look at this and go, you have failed. But I have failed in the aspects of, no, it's not some business. We don't have tens of thousands of dollars running through here. But yet, if you look at it from the flip side, in which, man, look at the number of lives you've impacted. You've been insanely successful. So I like to focus on the success part and not the monetary or the business side of things, in which I just look at the good we have created and done. And again, I think it was before on camera, Brad Norwood. I mean, I've now created relationships with hundreds of people from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That in some cases I've probably met 200 people face to face from LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about running at the gym. The only thing I would run in Louisville for is an Impellizzeri's pizza. I'd probably run for an
man, that's some good stuff.
I'd probably run for an Impellizzeri's pizza, and then I would have to go to the gym but no, that's a beautiful point. And here's what I was thinking about when you were talking about that. In watching your videos, and this is what has always struck me, and it has struck me profoundly. Even though the camera is on, you talked about turning the camera on. You are very intentional about looking that person in the eye. It's almost like that camera isn't there, right? And that is the antithesis, Michael, of how most people do some of those things. It's sometimes it's them always looking at the camera. For you, what strikes me is your number one focus is that person that's there.
Brian, let me tell you something.
I admire the daylights out of that.
I often say I'm looking to impact two lives. The first, which is what you just said, and the most important one, is the person I'm physically with. That person matters the most. And then the next is just one set of eyeballs that watches it. Because if one set of eyeballs watches it and goes out, whether they do a random act of kindness or whether it impacts their life in a way, because what I try to recreate with the video as I do is just giving people hope and a reason to smile. So you may have sat in the office all day and your day is miserable and you're regretting going home, but all of a sudden you go to the bathroom at 4:00 and you sit on the toilet and you pull up LinkedIn for a second, and then you're just laughing and smiling. And I've taken...
You know me so well.
Because I've done it. We've all done it. You remove someone's mind for the moment, just away from things, man.
Well, and that's the beautiful part of it, Michael. And that is what, to me, that's what intentional encouragement is all about, is any moment. And I say this at the end of every one of these episodes. Anyone at any time at any place can be an intentional encourager. You don't have to have a special skill set. No. You don't have to be, you don't have to have taken courses in it. You just have to have a few pieces of knowledge. You just have to be specific. You just have to be timely. You just have to be intentional. You just have to be kind. They're just basic human elements. I got to ask you this. Where, for you, when you think about that, how big is encouragement to the Smile Project? How big of a piece is intentional encouragement in what you do?
It's limitless. It's endless. It's everything, because I want people, again, as I shared earlier in talking about that question of what makes you amazing too, I want people to believe in self-love, loving yourself for who you are, the ability to smile through adversity. I want people to find that place that I have found. When we went through COVID, again, going back to Maddie, there were so many times in which I was like, you don't give a rat's ass. There's no stress. You don't care if you're locked up for the rest of your life, because I think the way she processed it was, I find infinite happiness with my family.
These are the people that love me the most.
They love me the most. So, again, I try to really just in these short bursts, whether I'm with someone or someone's watching, is to understand what makes us amazing, to love ourselves, and then go be loved.
Yeah.
And I do look at the simplicity of a smile because for me, I tell anyone who's a parent, this is kind of where I start and ask if you're a parent. One of the most number one thing we take for granted is our kids say, I love you. I don't care when it is, 2, 3 years old, whatever the math is, they say, I love you. Well, Maddie's 23 years old, and those 3 words have never come out of her mouth because she can't. So for me, I equate smiling to love because my affirmation from a little girl who had Down syndrome, when I asked her, do you love daddy? She smiled back.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so good. And in the second part of this conversation, we will dive deep with Maddie Moo and get to that part of the conversation. And again, you're going to want to stick around for part 2 of this conversation with Michael Ray from the Smile Project, because if you follow him on LinkedIn, you follow him on Facebook, you know the importance of Maddie Moo, and we will get to that in the next part of our conversation here on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
My thanks as always to producer Bryce Sexton and technical advisor Matt Means. And of course, the ultimate thanks goes to the Lord Jesus Christ, who provides intentional encouragement every day through his word. If you're not subscribed to the Intentional Encourager podcast, hit the subscribe button wherever you get podcasts so you don't miss an exciting episode where you can get encouraged and stay encouraged. And remember, anyone, anywhere, at any time, any place can be an intentional encourager.